All right, here we are at the next stop. We're going to look for this guy's image on your slide deck. His name is General George Meade, and he is really important to the Civil War because of what he was able to do in the Union's most darkest moment. He is sometimes credited with saving the Union from complete defeat. So first of all, like everybody else, he's a West Point graduate. He fought in the Mexican-American War alongside a lot of other guys. But here is his claim to fame. He hands Robert E. Lee his first defeat at the Battle of Gettysburg. And I know you're doing this in not the correct order. You're kind of doing this randomly. So if you haven't gotten to Lee yet, real quickly, in 1861, 1862, the Confederates actually win a lot of battles. They win more battles than they lose. Grant is out west winning some battles, but where it counts, back east in Virginia, near Washington, D.C. and Richmond, the Union Army is having a really hard time. And Lincoln has gone through general after general after general. In fact, if you haven't learned about McClellan yet, he's gonna hire McClellan, fire McClellan, hire McClellan, fire McClellan, and in between there, he's got a couple other generals that are doing everything they can to try and defeat Robert E. Lee in Virginia, and they just can't do it until Gettysburg. Lee invades the North for the first time. He goes against the main strategy of the South, which is a defensive war, and decides to turn his troops into an offensive unit and invades Pennsylvania and ends up engaging the Union Army for 3 days at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And we will learn more about the battle next week. It's a turning point battle in the war. Meade is put in charge of the U.S. Army at the Battle of Gettysburg. And he shows up on the evening of the first day of battle and takes command and does everything he can to try and stop Lee and hurl him back into Virginia. The second day is a bloody set of fighting, but the Union is able to hold off the Confederates. And on the third day, Lee makes his famous Pickett's Charge, which is a complete disaster. And as a result, Lee is defeated at the Battle of Gettysburg, and he has to retreat back into Virginia. George Meade, however, his mistake is, as Lee is retreating to Virginia, Meade does not pursue after him. His men are demoralized. Lee's men are demoralized. Lee's men are tired. Lee's men is running out of ammunition. And although the same thing is true for the Union Army, the Union had just won a big victory. The morale was enough to be able to push your troops and go after Lee and crush his army and capture him and end this war. Meade instead does not do that. What does Meade do? Meade opts to give his men rest, send them back to Washington, D.C., get them re-outfitted, get them refit, and put fresh troops into the ranks, and then go pursue Lee after that. And Lincoln is just crazy on fire upset. He can't believe it. Even for Lincoln, who doesn't have a lot of military experience, he can see in this moment that if Meade would have just gone after Lee on the fourth or fifth day, there's a possibility the war might have ended. He could have crushed Lee's army, and there would have been an open path to Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy, and maybe the war would be over. But instead, Meade goes back to Washington, D.C. So as a result, he's going to be replaced by Grant. Lincoln's going to replace Meade with Grant officially. But Grant has a lot of respect for George Meade. He saw what happened at the Battle of Gettysburg. He's familiar with Meade from the Mexican-American War. And like Sherman, he wants to put trusted advisors around himself. He wants his subordinates to be people that when he gives them an order, they go ahead and execute it properly. And so even though Meade is criticized for not chasing Lee out of Gettysburg as he retreated, Grant respects him enough and keeps him on as a general. And Meade will be there at the end when Lee does surrender, ahead of one of the groups of armies, one of the divisions that Grant puts him in charge of. So that is Meade's claim to fame. He's the first general to defeat Robert E. Lee, and he will be part of Grant's staff towards the end, and he will be there to see the end of the Confederacy. So General George Gordon Meade, he's pretty important in the Civil War.